Let's take a look at BMW's super sporty sedan, the M3 for 2025. I'm Jay, and this is Modern Motoring. Welcome to the 2025 BMW M3, and I'm going to do a Perks, Quirks, and Irks on this. Still runs off a 3-liter twin-powered turbocharged inline-6 engine, 473 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. It is rear-wheel drive only and is manual only. If you want to get the automatic and the all-wheel drive / X-drive, you gotta jump up to the competition. So let's bring it back to what we have here with the M3. Let's start off with the Perks, which is manual only. In a world where manual transmissions are fading away rather quickly, it is refreshing to see that BMW has invested the resources to making the M3 manual only. Next up, there's the standard adaptive suspension, both in the front and the rear. Makes it a little more livable compared to the AMG CLA, where it's a little on the rougher side. There's definitely a high livability score here, as well as a daily driving score that ranks high, because not everybody at every moment is going to want to have that really rigid and heavily performance setup as far as what their daily driving is like. Another perk here is BMW's iDrive version 8.5. Yes, the touchscreen is so close, like that's my hand, that's the camera, and you can see just about my wrist is showing in my hands. Fully past the screen, so you can easily use the touchscreen. But if you don't like fingerprints, there is still that rotary dial that controls everything. So it definitely makes a difference. You know, if you are going to a track with this, and if you are doing performance driving, and you do need to mess around with your infotainment for whatever reason to change your driving settings or set up your M1 or your M2, know that having their new curved screen display while maintaining the rotary dial is still very, very functional and very user-friendly. Another perk is that there's 480 liters of cargo space, and the rear seats go down 40-20-40, so you still have that functionality if you're putting something longer in the trunk / rear seats of the vehicle, but you still have to take maybe 1 or 2 passengers with you. You can still fit a fair amount of things back there, as well as, again, the 40-20-40, whether it's skis or some flat pack furniture. This is a cosmetic one, but I'm going to mention it because I really like it. I'm happy they put silver exhaust tips as opposed to black ones. Now, this paint color is Dakar Yellow 2, and sure, the black might look nice, but I find that silver just pops so well. Even though the M3 is legendary and there is so much performance here, it can still be dialed down and it can really be tamed so you can enjoy it year-round. And I fully understand most potential M3 buyers are looking here because it's got so much performance and it's just capable of so much. But when you dial things down to efficient / comfort, as far as your chassis, your steering, your brake, it really is an enjoyable daily driver. It balances the line quite nicely between being explosively powerful and having enough comfort and softness to be enjoyed day to day. Last note on the perk side is the 6-speed manual transmission. It is very smooth shifting, relatively short throws, and there's a nice bite point on the clutch, so there's still, you know, again, that performance aspect to it, but it's not one of those unmanageable clutches where you're kind of guessing where your bite point is and shifts just feel a little weird. There's a good feel for the clutch pedal as well. It's not really rubbery. It's definitely got that nice firm and solid feel. And the same thing with the gear selector as well. You have very pronounced throws, and it's a touch notchy, you know, maybe 2 out of 10 on the notchy scale. But I'm really happy with the way BMW has engineered the manual transmission here in the M3. On to the Quirk side, it's the grille. I've learned to like it. I don't have any problems with it anymore, and it's just the way BMW is doing their design, but it's still a little on the quirky side. Next up on the Quirk side is the M3 is manual, the M3 competition is automatic, the M3 is rear-wheel drive, and the M3 competition is all-wheel drive / X-drive. Can be seen as a little quirky. I understand why they did it. They had to have some kind of separation between the two, or else one would just cannibalize the sales of the others. I think there'd likely be an even split between those who still want to roll their own gears and have all the fun of what a rear-wheel drive car can offer. Even though it's a 2025 model, it still has the older style of steering wheel buttons, and I like that. I like myself some nice, thick, chunky buttons. I don't really care for the new style of stuff. Maybe I'm just showing my age here, but easy to use, easy to operate, and muscle memory will kick in. I won't have to look down at it if I want to adjust the tracks on what I'm listening to, or the volume, or set up my cruise controls. Another quirk here is on the financial side, and it has to do with luxury tax in Canada. So luxury tax is in effect of anything over $100,000. Now the M3 rings in at $92,250, which means you can get a couple of options before you start teetering really close into that $100,000 point. So the way this car is spec'd, there's the $5,000 paint job. There's also a $4,000 premium package attached to it. So we're just in and around the $100,000 point. There's also a couple of other standalone options as well. Now, if you do want the M3 competition, that's gonna go for almost 100 grand itself, which means if you want to skip the luxury tax, you can't really add much of anything onto the price. Onto the Irks side of things. First up is that there's no sunroof, and I know why there's not one here. It's a carbon fiber roof because you got to lower the weight for that better power to weight ratio. But some people really have an attachment to sunroofs, and some people really like them. Next up is a weird one, and I ask you not to get angry or upset in the comments on this one. It's because it's manual only. And some people don't like driving manual, and some people can't drive manual or are no longer able to for whatever reason. There's likely hundreds of different reasons for different people as to why they want an automatic transmission, and that is completely fine and fair. So that might be a bit of a deterrent for some people. Pairing with the manual only is the rear wheel drive only, and some people want or need all wheel drive, and it's a deal breaker for them. For whatever reason, it might be that that's what they're more comfortable with, that's what they're used to, that's what they want. Where they live, it might require all-wheel drive to them. So again, just like the manual transmission, not for everybody. Same thing with the rear-wheel drive, it's not for everybody. There are staggered wheels on the M3, and it's not an Irk because they're staggered, it's on the replacement side of things. Most tires are sold in sets of 4 because, well, people usually replace their tires all at once. But with these, it's a bit of a stretch of an Irk, but it's important for me to mention it. There's a slight but still potential of maybe having a bit of a delay in getting 2 out of your 4 tires because they are different sizes. There are a lot of ways to set up your M3 on the driving side. You have your M1 button, you have your M2 button. You can go to your setup screen and you can change how responsive the engine is, whether you want the gear shift assisted on, which is just your rev matching, the chassis, the steering, the brake. So it's good that there's a lot of options. I worry that some people might find it a little overwhelming, might not use the vehicle to its full potential. And it's a bit of a touchy subject because if you're looking at an M3, your mind's nearly fully made up. You know what it can do, you know what it's capable of. You have your own certain driving styles. Again, I can see how maybe, possibly some people might find it a little on the overwhelming side. I personally don't. I might be a little biased because I've been doing this for over 10 years, so I'm very fluent in what the M cars are capable of and how to configure them. But it's just something to point out because part of these reviews are educating the consumer as much as possible. So maybe it might be overwhelming. Chances are it's not, but just something to keep in mind. Last thing in the Irks pile is competition from within BMW, and it's not really an Irk. It's more of a just comparison piece, but I couldn't put it as a perk and I couldn't put it as a quirk, so I ended up in the Irks pile, and here's what it is. If you want the performance side of a 3 Series, there is the M340i, and I know it's not the same as an M3, I absolutely understand that, but it's also $22,350 of a difference between the M340i and what you have here in the M3. And if just raw power is one of your key deciding factors, the M340i has 386 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque. Contrast that here with the 473 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. The torque figures are really close with only 8 pound-feet separating them. So as you're doing your research, as you're figuring out what you want, if your mind's made up that you do want a 3 Series, do you feel that the $22,350 price increase between the M340i and the M3 is warranted? Again, based on what you do. And I know I sound like a broken record for continuing to say this, but it's an important piece to keep repeating. Not everybody is using this vehicle the same way. We have different driving styles, different needs, different wants. different behaviors, different lifestyles. So again, if you need an M3 and you want an M3 and the M3 is the car for you, good, great, fantastic. I hope you thoroughly enjoy it. But if you're looking for something in the BMW 3 Series world that has a lot of power, doesn't have a manual transmission, doesn't have rear-wheel drive, doesn't have the extra performance bits, maybe the M340i is where to go. And that's going to wrap it up for the 2025 BMW M3 Perks, Quirks, and Irks video. If you have any questions on what you've seen here, let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to engage in respectful conversation. I invite you to join us on our social media platforms. We are on all of the major ones. And I thank you, I appreciate you. Without you, there is no modern motoring. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.